also happy to answer questions about content standards or instructional issues. I've been at MDE since 2006. And one thing that's really helped me get through this challenging spring and summer is our new puppy, Joey. After many years of begging, we gave in to my daughter, and it was the best decision ever. And I've been spending a lot of time out in nature, as you can see by this photo this summer, just trying to stay grounded. So excited to have you all here today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jodi Versaw. My role on the team is I am the Program Quality Specialist. Some of the things you might ask me about are the annual ABE application and the tables, the 5-year narrative, program improvement, and I also work together with Brad on Standard Adult Diploma. I've been at MDE about 4 years, since 2016. And a personal note about me, I have 2 kids and my youngest just turned 13. So I now have 2 teenagers, which is feeling a little intimidating, I guess. And another thing that a lot of people I feel like don't know about me is that I lived during my middle school and high school years in Two Harbors on the North Shore. So when I was a teenager, I spent a lot of time on the breakwater in Two Harbors, which you see in this image. So that's a little about me.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Dincau, and my role is the transition specialist. And you can ask me about the Integrated English Literacy and Civics Education Grant, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act partnerships and guidance around that, regional transitions to employment training and post-secondary. But on a more interesting topic, you can ask me about animals as well. I'm very interested in their migration patterns, the way they communicate, and I've been spending a lot of time watching the DNR Eagle Cam. I've been at the Department of Education since 2010, and I've been vegetarian for many, many, many years.
Excellent. Thank you, team. I also want to make sure we get a chance to introduce a couple of our other team members. Part of our leadership team is Alice Smith. She is our GED records specialist. You can see her email here. I know many of you have interacted with her and found her help invaluable. You can ask her about GED history, GED records, and age waivers. She's been at MDE since 1980, 40 years now, and she is really looking forward to retirement next year. And I also wanted to introduce Cherie Eichinger. I know many of you have interacted with her as well. She's our administrative support specialist, and you can ask her about getting on the Minnesota Adult Education email list. Ask her about events led by our adult education staff at MDE, and just any general MDE ABE questions. She also has been at the Department of Education since 1980, 40 years. She loves walking during the summertime and looking at all the beautiful flowers and landscape that people have in their yards. And she's walking a long ways if this is what she's seeing from Minnesota. We also want to acknowledge one of our wonderful team members, Todd. Todd has retired as our state adult education director and supervisor. This is part of his eventual ease into retirement plan. We really are so grateful for his decades of service, both to adult education and to the Minnesota Department of Education. But we're really lucky. He is not saying goodbye for good. He plans on shifting roles, and in about a month, he plans to return to the Minnesota Department of Education and our adult education team to help us out part-time with some work and some cleanup. And if you don't know Todd, Todd loves to bike. So I'm really hoping right now that he is enjoying some good bike trails.
We also want to recognize the others in our field who have retired or are looking at an upcoming retirement. You all have brought so much to our system and to our learners and to our field. I'd like to invite folks to chat. If you know of any recent or upcoming retirements, let's please recognize them in the chat. We want to thank you all for all of your service to our field. Go to the next slide, Brad. We'd also like to welcome those of you who are new to the field. Adult basic education is a very unique, collaborative, and dynamic field where you can really see an impact that you're making on people's lives every day. And if you haven't discovered this already, you'll also find that people are always willing to help, share what they know, share what they've developed. So encourage you to just ask. There will be many people there to help you out. So if you are new to the field, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know what your name is, your program. We'd love to meet you in person when we're able to do that. We also want to make sure that everyone who is new is aware that we do have ABE Foundations training, which is designed for those who are newer to the field to learn the basics of Minnesota adult education. That's offered through Atlas. There's a link here on this slide where you can find information about how to participate in an online course, as well as some new support webinars that we have for those going through the course this year, series of 3 webinars in October. So encourage you to do that as a way to learn more about the field and meet others who are new. And finally, we want to thank all of you. We know that this has been an extremely challenging year with so many changes and so many hurdles that we've all had to overcome. But we have seen that you've all stepped up. We want to thank you for the incredibly hard work and everything you've done to offer quality instruction to our ABE learners in the midst of so many changes. So let's again recognize our colleagues in the chat. Love to hear about some of the things that have been happening out in the field. Also want to encourage you to stay connected to each other, even though many of us are working from home, not spending as much time in person. We still have a wonderful network of adult educators. You can stay connected through our Minnesota ABE Connect newsletter, as well as our Minnesota Adult Education Schoology networking group. So let's stay connected through this challenging time.
At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Julie Dincau from our team to share some of the Minnesota adult education information from this year.
And this is the recent data that we just pulled from the tables that everyone submitted. And you can see the number of students, staff, teachers, and volunteers we have. Just to know that we've always had an incredible number of volunteers that are supporting the ABE field throughout Minnesota, and staff and teachers as well. But if you combine everything, if we were a city, we'd be the 15th largest city in the state, about the size of Eden Prairie, and more people than Coon Rapids. And then we have 39 consortia statewide. We have one consortia that has left and another consortia that combined. So we're down 2 from last year. And we have over 330 ABE program sites. That's brick and mortar sites across the state, and they're in schools, nonprofit organization, correctional facilities, tribal nations, colleges, and career force.
We also want to acknowledge our ABE Support Network, which is something that's unique to Minnesota. We are very lucky to receive generous state funding, and a portion of that funding is used to fund a number of grantees to provide essential capacity building and professional development services to our entire field. So if you are not already familiar with these organizations and the services they provide, I encourage you to check out our Minnesota Adult Education Professional Development Catalog. We have Atlas, Literacy Action Network, Literacy Minnesota, the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards, PANDA, and Southwest ABE that work together to serve all of you and provide resources and professional development to support your work. You can find information about activities that have been scheduled on our Minnesota Adult Education PD calendar. So when you download the slides, you can follow these links to find out more information about those support network providers. Thank you to everyone working on behalf of a support network grant. We would not be able to do this work without you, and you've all been incredibly supportive and innovative through this time of change. So thank you so much.
Okay. We also wanted to share with you, how did we serve learners this past year? Well, over the past year, we served learners with roughly 4.5 million contact hours. And that was up just a little bit from the year before. Please note, though, that I'm using the March 2019 to March 2020 hours, because we know that things have changed with the COVID-related disruptions. I'm also excited to share with you that you helped adult education learners earn nearly 2,500 diplomas, and that might be GED diplomas, that might be standard adult diplomas, or local high school diplomas. And that is down significantly from last year, largely due to COVID-related disruptions. But we think that those are two good markers about how to measure our work in adult education. But that's not the only way we measure our work in adult education. On the screen here, you can see Laura. Laura earned her GED at Glacial Lakes Adult Education in 2013. Her hard work and personality caught the attention of the director of the local grant foundation. That foundation, Ridgewater College, Career Force, and Adult Education partnered to get Laura enrolled in college and into a work study opportunity at the foundation. And Laura said herself, when she moved to Hutchinson, she met one of the most influential people in her life. This person encouraged her to move forward with her education. And not only was she able to get her GED diploma, she earned her ServSafe certificate, a retail management certificate, and got experience in small business management. All of these studies provided great opportunities to grow and combine the knowledge from each area to mold her understanding of the business world. And she has decided to pursue her studies as an administrative assistant. She feels she has a great opportunity to make herself better and bring a new perspective to an amazing local organization. While she is studying in her program, she finds that it's not only for herself, but for her new community. And it's really exciting to hear stories like Laura's. And I really want to thank Cherie from Glacial Lakes for sharing that story with us. Thank you. This is why we do the work that we do. And this really measures the impact of the work that we do.
So we wanted to take a minute also to talk briefly about our funding for this year. As you probably know, a big percentage of our ABE funding statewide is distributed out to providers and consortia based on contact hours. So for the current fiscal year we are in, that started on July 1st, you can see here the contact hour rates. So this is based on the contact hours that are generated from March 14th, 2019 through March 13th, 2020, so before the COVID disruptions. And when we took our entire pot of funding and used those contact hours to distribute it out, these are the contact hour rates that resulted. The state contact hour rate this year is $7.74 per hour. You will note that that is a significant increase from last year. And the main reason for that is because through the state legislature, we did get a 3% increase in our statewide pot of state ABE funding for this fiscal year. Our federal ABE funding, the contact hour rate for that funding is 73 cents per hour, which you'll note is fairly even, just a little bit up from last year. So those are the basics of our ABE funding for this current fiscal year.
Thanks, Jodi. Now let's talk about the Contact Hour Working Group that was led by staff from the Minnesota Department of Education and Literacy Action Network. And this working group included 9 ABE members from around the state. And the purpose of this group was to recommend what contact hours ABE programs should report that will affect their ABE funding in fiscal year 22, meaning from July 2021 to June 2022. There was a solid focus on minimizing negative financial impact on local ABE programs statewide. And so this was a 3-month virtual project. And during this time, this group learned details about the ABE funding formula and statute. They discussed varying effects of COVID-related closures on ABE programs. And they explored solutions that seemed to be the fairest for all programs. And so I want to introduce and thank all 9 members, actually 10 because we had one switch up here in the, during the process. But I want to thank these wonderful working group members for really digging in and advocating not just for their program, but for all the programs in the state. So thank you, Amber, Anthony, Deb, Eric, Heather, Kirsten, Margot, Patty, and Tracy. You all, from your programs and your roles, really advocated for the best for our adult education system and our programs. And as you can see, they have a wide variety of programs geographically. These folks also represented a variety of roles in our system. And so I really thank you for the hard work that you did. And their recommendation was to reuse contact hours that local programs reported on Table A1 from March 14, 2019 to March 13, 2020 for the 2021 to 2022 ABE funding. That would allow everyone to keep the same contact hour revenue growth caps used in FY21, which would mean everybody gets the equal amount of state funding as they did this year. They'll get that same amount next year. And that would hold everybody harmless for a year. And that's assuming then that the state ABE funding is equal for the next year. But they really wanted to make sure that everyone had the same impact on their funding and that no one was harmed negatively during this COVID-related closure period. So some next steps with this recommendation. The Literacy Action Network Board is reviewing and will vote on this recommendation. After that, our adult education team at the Minnesota Department of Education is going to work with the finance and leadership at Minnesota Department of Education to review and implement that recommendation. So some implications. What does that mean for your program? Our message is consistent. Please continue to serve adult education learners as best you can, utilizing all effective methods of communication and instruction, including those that can't currently be counted for contact hours. Focus on serving your learners and your community. Don't focus on contact hours. Astrid, do you want to share a little bit about distance learning?
Yes, thanks, Brad. So many programs will be continuing to use distance learning, and all of you have engaged in some form of distance learning probably over the past several months, since therefore this has been a very busy time for our state distance learning team that is supported through the Literacy Minnesota Support Network grant. We are very fortunate in Minnesota. We have 40 plus approved distance learning platforms that you can choose from to use in your programs and count as proxy hours. This provides a really wide range of resources, instructional materials for students at all levels. Given the increase in work that's been brought about by a rapid shift to distance learning for many or all programs, our distance learning support team cannot continue to review the growing number of approval requests that are coming in for platforms and still meet many of the other needs that are coming about in terms of supporting the field with distance learning. Therefore, we've made a decision to put a pause on considering new platform approval requests for the next several months. So from September 1st to December 31st of this year, we'll be taking a pause on accepting new platform proposals and encourage you to explore the wide range of distance learning platforms that are currently approved for use in Minnesota. Go to the next slide, Brad. So why this pause? Again, the transition to statewide distance learning has presented many demands and challenges to our entire field, and the distance learning support team has been there to support the work that you're doing with your learners. They are working to prioritize the many requests coming in. And during this pause, they're going to use that time to develop professional development to support integrating teacher-developed course content into learning management systems, as well as defining a model for counting asynchronous distance learning contact hours, which are not provided through an approved distance learning platform or a teacher-created course. So looking at what that might look like in the future for counting those hours. So again, encourage you to explore the many resources that are already approved. Susan's put that link to the distance learning website in the chat. And the distance learning team is there to help you make selections for what platforms and resources might be a good fit for your program and your learners. So thank you again, distance learning team, for all the work you've done to support our teachers and programs.
At this point, we want to take a few minutes to talk about fall programming, because we know that for most of you, you are deep in the work of preparing and planning for fall. So as we do that, we have the key message for you all across the state is that what we know about the fall is there really is not going to be any one size fits all for ABE this fall, and probably not this school year. We know some of you are working on plans to do only distance education with your learners, and your whole staff is working from home. We know in other places you're preparing to go back in person with your students in your classrooms. And we know many of you are working on a combination of both of those things. So we just encourage you to continue working with your communities, your districts, other organizations and partners, and the other leadership to figure out what is the best plan for this fall, and then make sure that you're adapting that plan along the way, as we will all be doing this year. As you are thinking about and working on fall programming and programming for the upcoming school year, we want to encourage you to use an equity lens when you're thinking about that work. And we know many of you already are, and we appreciate that you are doing that. So as we think about what an equity lens might look like for the fall, there are some questions we think that you can be asking, and we know many of you are already asking. An important question to start with could be, how have student demographics changed since COVID-related closures? And what are the implications of that? So really the question of who are we serving, who are we not serving, right? Which is an important equity question. And then we also know when we look at the students we are serving, we know that in this time, access to educational programming is difficult, and more difficult for some than for others. So we know that we need to be asking questions like, how do we serve students who don't have dependable access to the internet? How do we serve students who don't have strong computer skills? How do we serve our very most beginning learners, the ones who are just starting with English, the ones who are just starting with literacy? And how do we serve our learners who are vulnerable or at high risk of severe illness if they contract COVID-19? So we just want to encourage you and validate you as you are working and planning and preparing and thinking about this fall and this upcoming school year. that these are important questions for you to be considering, and that these are the questions, at least for this year, that really take precedence over the question of how many contact hours are we going to generate.
And so what does that mean around implications for ABE programs? Basically, in a nutshell, develop hybrid and distant learning models, even if in-person instruction will be offered this fall. We want you to build models that serve as many students as possible and with high quality education options. And this is looking towards the future and doing more online and virtual programming. So just ensure that those are being built and time is spent developing good quality instruction. And as far as the information on COVID-related MDE information, you can go to the MNABE organization website, mnabe.org. We have all the COVID-related materials there, and we also have the past presentation materials, and the state ABE presentation will be there as well. And if you're looking for any information that you can't seem to find on that website, you can always reach out to us as well.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks, Jodi. So now let's take some time to talk about our vision for the year ahead. I don't know about you, but it has been an exhausting year, like Astrid noted earlier, but I'm really excited for this upcoming year. And one of the quotes that seems really pertinent, I know we've shared this once before, but it is a Maya Angelou quote that says, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." And I believe, our team believes, that this is truly representative of all of the hard work that ABE, each of you individually, at the program level, and for us at the system level, have been working through to achieve this transformation. We see your amazing efforts, and we applaud all of your efforts to continue to grow. Like Julie noted, we hope that we will emerge through this as a more robust system that can serve more people in a wider variety of ways. And I'm hoping that all of these lessons will make our educational efforts better and have a more lasting impact, even more than it already has had, on more learners. So our collective charge to go forward here is to embrace the transformation, recognize this transformation, and hopefully we can grow with a focus on the most effective services for adult education students. So what does that mean? Let's explore why some potential learners are underserved in adult education, and let's find ways to serve them. Let's build flexible programming models, including in-person, hybrid, and distance education, both now and into the future, to serve more people effectively. And let's continue to integrate the academic, employability, technology skills, and standards in our instruction, as we also improve our own technology skills and technology access to better provide services that students need. And we want to make sure that we offer the most important credentials, diplomas, and certificates that students need to move forward with their goals. I know that this is a big charge for us, but let's work together on creating these solutions together. And it's really important, we wanted to make sure that we reiterated our adult education team at the Minnesota Department of Education, our team's equity statement. So our office, the State Adult Education Team, is committed to creating educational equity. We commit to recognizing the historical conditions and barriers that have prevented opportunity and success in learning for students based on their race, class, and other identities. We commit to working to dismantle the belief in a hierarchy of human value with a focus on racial equity. We commit to fostering positive and effective learning environments for all by eliminating institutional policies that uphold oppressive systems of power and privilege. We commit to collaboratively creating a learning community within the ABE system that promotes opportunities for self-reflection, for growth, and for change. And we see Minnesota adult education as a key to building educated, engaged, and just communities for all Minnesotans. So in addition, we want to make sure that you understand that we are here to work with you. We want to hear from you. Our role, we see our role as an office, as a team, is to provide effective leadership to the system with our support network and our ABE programs. We want to make sure we're advocating for ABE with all of our partners. And we want to do what is best for ABE students, staff, and volunteers statewide. So we look forward to working with you throughout this year as we go forward. And true to form, we said we want to hear from you. So we do have a couple of minutes here in the chat. We would love to hear what questions or input do you have for the NDE Adult Education team? Please share them in the chat, and I encourage our team to kind of help chime in and help us answer some of those questions.
Emma?
Someone have a question? We have a good statement here from Laura. Laura's concerned about persistence and equity with students who can only use smartphones. That's a good point. And that we've definitely seen issues with technology access, and that is affecting who we can effectively serve during this time. I know our distance learning team with Literacy Minnesota and St. Paul Public Schools has been working and acknowledging this issue, as has our NDE team. And so that's why you'll see in that list of platforms, you'll see some additional ways that students can do distance education. And that includes some paper-based work or platforms or instruction as well. A good question as well from Karen. Karen's noting or asking, what will Todd's role be when he returns in September? Have we decided that yet? So Todd's role will largely be a lot of help and cleanup with a lot of things that that he has expertise in that the rest of us don't, including some of the financial behind the scenes work, some of the other data related work, and other things that he has expertise on. But he really sees his role in returning to help the system kind of make sure that we as a team have all the information that we need, and to make sure that the system continues to flow. He kind of sees himself kind of assisting us as a team in whatever way we see fit. Another question I see from Karen is, are you still planning to have all events online through December, or has that been extended? So through adult education, and that includes MDE, the MDE adult education team, as well as our support network providers, we at this point have committed to having all events online through December. Astrid, do you want to say anything more about that?
Yes, Brad. So we do have a statewide professional development committee that will be meeting in October. And at that point, we plan to revisit the question of events beyond December, and we'll be likely seeking input from the field as well, and looking at the current situation to make that decision. So look for more information later this fall about events beyond that December current extension.
Thanks, Astrid. We have a question from Chris. Chris foresees a growing number of students signing up for classes and other programs if they are providing a class or training that they're interested in that isn't provided by their local ABE program. How can we continue to move forward with a cooperation model as we move back to contact hours being relevant? This is a really good question, and we have been thinking about this and struggling with this at the statewide level. Julie, do you want to share a little bit about how we had this conversation and about the conversation we had with this about this specific question with our adult career pathway programs?
Sure, Brad. Yes, we did bring together people who are working on adult career pathways because we saw this as one area where this could really benefit the students. And it's not reasonable to expect that every ABE program is going to be able to offer adult career pathways in a variety of different fields for every student. And so some of the discussion that we had was that right now there is nothing preventing programs from doing this. You can do that. We just ask that initially, and I'm referring to adult career pathways for the time being, that you reach out to the other programs and you work out an agreement between the manager and your consortium program. If you are referring students to their program. Otherwise, students actually have the ability to sign up for whatever programming they want. But that's where it's at initially. We thought we would try it with adult career pathways and then see how that works and continue to discuss and look at the results and see what it might look like across the entire state.
Thank you, Julie. I would also note that we are in conversations with Literacy Minnesota and the hotline to discuss how we might want to provide more information specifically about career pathway programming on the hotline so that learners can make good choices about which program is offering the program that suits them best. And I will say as well that we want to make sure that students are getting the best education possible and that we're doing what's best for the learners. So as we do that, I'm hoping that you at the program level are engaging with your other ABE programs and staff and other consortia to see who's offering what and how can we collaborate. Adult education has been such a collaborative field and such a grassroots field in many ways that I hope that we can continue to create that organically and try to support that organically to make sure that we're doing what is best for our learners. And as you note, Chris, as we move back to contact hours being more relevant, that will become more of a concern, but and we'll continue to need more conversations about this because it is a big question to ask. I completely agree. But let's keep focusing on what's best for our learners and making sure that we're offering and referring them to the best program possible for them. So we've had a couple other folks chime in about some of the smartphone and technology access issues. Kara notes that some of their students don't even have smartphones, so they've been handing out computers, but not all students have Wi-Fi either, which makes sense. Packet distribution is exhausting. I completely agree. I can see that being a very exhausting model. And Mary Jo says that they have two students without any phones and several more that have no smartphones or internet access. Any solutions involving equity here? And so I think that we need to continue making sure that we try to offer the best services possible for our adult education learners. And I hope that we can think about new ways to either share technology or find ways to provide instruction that don't require a lot of technology, and maybe a combination of the two as we think about our developing in-person, hybrid, and distance education models. I know there's a lot more that we could share, and there's a lot more questions raised right now maybe than answers that we can provide, but we thank you for talking with us today. We thank you for all of your time, your hard work for our adult education learners. Please reach out to us if you have additional questions, ideas, and issues you'd like to discuss. If you didn't feel your question was fully answered, which isn't always the case, continue to reach out to us and we're happy to talk with you some more. I look forward to this year. Our team looks forward to this year, and I thank you all for your great work. Let's have Astrid, do you want to say goodbye?
Yes, thank you all so much for being here and for all of your contributions. I hope you have an excellent conference, and I look forward to seeing you virtually throughout the fall at a variety of professional development events. Thank you, everyone.
And Julie, do you want to say goodbye?
Yes, thank you to the amazing ABE field in Minnesota. We stand out as a state that does incredibly good work, and that's all due to you and our supplemental service providers and all the great work that everyone is doing. So thank you.
And Jodi.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's really great to gather in this way. It's hard that we're not all together in person, but I believe that we're going to work through this and have a really positive year ahead. So enjoy the rest of the conference, and thanks everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great conference. Thanks to Literacy Action Network, and we'll see you throughout the conference and beyond.